Evan Cole had never considered himself special. At 43 years old, he pushed a mop across the gleaming floors of Unity Station's diplomatic wing, invisible to the parade of aliens and dignitaries who swept past him daily. He wore the same faded gray jumpsuit, carried the same dented lunch pail, and followed the same routine he'd maintained for 15 years. The kid had appeared 3 weeks ago, small, no taller than Evan's hip, with iridescent scales that shifted between deep purple and midnight blue. The child sat in the service corridor every evening around 1900 hours, tucked behind a waste recycling unit where the dim lighting created shadows thick enough to hide in. Evan noticed because noticing details was part of his job, a discarded wrapper, a scuff mark, anything out of place. The alien child never spoke, never moved much either, just sat there with enormous golden eyes that tracked Evan's movements as he worked. On the 4th night, Evan paused. "You hungry, kid?" No response. Those luminous eyes just stared. Evan shrugged and went back to mopping. But the next evening, he brought an extra sandwich. Real chicken, not the synthetic stuff saved from his own modest rations. He set it down 3 feet from the child and continued his work. When he circled back 20 minutes later, the sandwich was gone. This became their routine. Evan would bring food, sometimes fruit, sometimes protein bars, once a chocolate chip cookie that made those golden eyes widen with something that might have been wonder. The child, whom Evan had started calling Kid in his mind, never spoke but began to creep closer each night. "You got a name?" Evan asked on the 10th night, sitting down heavily on an overturned bucket. His knees weren't what they used to be. The child's mouth opened, revealing rows of tiny crystalline teeth. A sound emerged, musical and strange, with harmonics that human vocal cords couldn't reproduce. "That's a mouthful," Evan chuckled. "Mind if I call you something easier? How about K?" The child's head tilted, considering. Then slowly came a nod. "K it is." Evan unwrapped his sandwich and split it down the middle. "Here, you shouldn't have to wait for leftovers." They ate together in comfortable silence, two beings from different worlds sharing a meal in a forgotten corridor of humanity's greatest achievement in interstellar diplomacy. Evan never asked questions, not where Kay came from, not why a child was alone on a station full of diplomatic missions and trade delegations. In his experience, people, human or otherwise, had their reasons, and kids who hid in service corridors usually had reasons they weren't ready to share. On the 20th night, Kay spoke. The words came haltingly, shaped by a mouth not designed for human language. "Why, you give food?" Evan paused mid-bite. "Because you're hungry, and because everybody deserves kindness, especially kids. You know what I am." "An alien kid who needs a sandwich?" Evan offered with a gentle smile. "That's all I need to know." Kay's scales rippled, shifting through colors Evan had never seen before. Silver, gold, crimson. "You not afraid of you?" "Nah." Evan took another bite. "You remind me of my nephew. He used to hide in the garage when things got tough at home. I'd bring him snacks, sit with him. Didn't need to talk about it. Just needed to know someone cared." "Where, nephew? Now?" "Mars Colony, engineer, smart kid." Pride warmed Evan's voice. "That's what kindness does, Kay. Helps people become who they're meant to be." The child's eyes glistened with something that transcended species. Gratitude, perhaps a recognition. "I remember you," Kay whispered. Then the child was gone, vanishing into the maintenance shafts with startling speed. Evan didn't see Kay for 6 days. He brought sandwiches anyway, leaving them in the usual spot, though they remained untouched. A hollow feeling settled in his chest. He hoped the kid was okay wherever they'd gone. On the 7th day, Evan arrived for his evening shift to find Unity Station in chaos. Security personnel lined every corridor. Ships blazed through the docking patterns outside the viewports, sleek vessels that made human warships look like children's toys. And at the main gate to the diplomatic wing stood an honor guard of beings that made Evan's breath catch. They were 8 feet tall, scales gleaming like polished gemstones, wearing armor that seemed to be grown rather than forged. Their eyes, golden, ancient, and utterly alien, fixed on him as he approached with his mop and bucket. Excuse me, I just need to—" "Evan Cole," the largest one spoke, voice resonating with harmonics that made Evan's bones vibrate. "You will come with us." Fear spiked through him. "What did I do?" "You showed kindness to Prince Kareth." heir to the Jotharan Empire during his wandering. The being's massive head dipped in what might have been a bow. The Emperor requests your presence. Evan's mop clattered to the floor. They led him through corridors he'd only cleaned, never walked as a guest, into chambers where treaty negotiations shaped the fate of star systems, and finally into a room that hummed with barely contained power. The Emperor was magnificent and terrifying. Scales of deepest black shot through with veins of light, eyes that held the weight of 1,000 conquered worlds, and beside the throne wearing robes that shimmered like starlight stood Kay. Evan Cole. The Emperor's voice could have shattered mountains. You fed my son, protected him, asked nothing in return. I didn't know he was... You knew he was a child. That was enough. The Emperor rose, and the room itself seemed to bow. The wandering is our oldest tradition. Royal heirs must experience the universe without wealth or title to learn wisdom. Most encounter cruelty, exploitation, fear. Kay stepped forward, no longer the frightened child in the corridor. You gave me sandwich. Your own food. Asked only if I had name. You taught my son, the Emperor continued, what we have forgotten in our conquest of stars. That power without compassion is tyranny. That kindness has no species. He was hungry. Yes. The Emperor's laugh was like thunder. So simple, so human. Kay approached holding something that glowed with inner light. In our culture, life debts are sacred. You saved more than body. You saved me. Those golden eyes, so familiar from their evenings together, met his. You are now Shantara, friend of the crown, under protection of Empire, forever. Evan took the glowing crystal, warm and pulsing like a heartbeat. Kay, I didn't do it for rewards. I know. The child, the prince, smiled with human understanding learned in a shadowed corridor. You did because it was right. That is why you are worthy. As Evan left the chamber, honor guard escorting him like royalty, he glanced back. Kay waved, and Evan saw both the powerful prince and the lonely child who'd needed a sandwich and a friend. He'd come to work that day as a janitor. He'd leave as something he never expected, proof that in a universe of empires and power, the smallest act of human kindness could reshape everything. Sometimes, changing the galaxy started with splitting a sandwich in half.